What's going on, everybody? It's Brad here. I'm back on the MCubed network with the show here covering art house and independent cinema. If you guys have been following along, I have been making a series basically going through my personal acquisitions into my own personal Criterion collection, which is, of course, a company that, restores old films and foreign films and gives them really nice physical media releases with all kinds of special features, all kinds of supplements, really restored picture quality, sound quality, all kinds of stuff like that. They do a lot of great work, so everybody should check them out on their website and all of that. But in any case, like I said, we've been going alphabetically through the collection that I have, really just providing you guys with recommendations and stuff like that. So without further ado, we're gonna move along here, and we're gonna get into the F section, really F and G, because I only had 2 entries for the Fs, and I figured since I was gone the past week, my friends and I were shooting a short film that a buddy of mine, Alex, wrote. And I was the director of photography, so I was busy over 4 or 5 days filming that. But we got that done, and it was really good. So I can't wait to show you guys that product, the final product, once it's been edited. But in any case, I wanted to combine the F and the G sections and really give you a longer video. Like I said, just because I've been gone for a week, so I thought it'd be fun. So in any case, let's get started. We're going to go through the Fs and the Gs today. So in any case, like I said, let's start with the first entry in the F section, and that's going to be Frances Ha by Noah Baumbach. This is from 2013. It's about an hour and 15 minutes, so super short. But this movie is fantastic. I'm a huge fan of Noah Baumbach. Of course, I think my favorite film of his has to be Marriage Story. When I was in, and I have that on the collection as well. We'll get to that movie. But when I was in a screenwriting class in college, Marriage Story was the script that I was assigned, basically to break down and make a presentation about it. I read it all the way through more than once, and it was incredibly moving and incredibly raw. And I just loved it. And that was the first real exposure to Noah Baumbach that I had outside of this movie, because I had seen this online just in different film circles, that being Frances Ha, like I said, and had heard that this movie was really wonderful, and that it had a Criterion release, so I was interested in checking it out. And I think for me, this movie is a huge inspiration, because I shouldn't say super. It's fairly low budget in that it's very short. It has minimal characters, minimal set pieces or things like that. It's just kind of really just on location in New York City. You have a couple small apartments. You have a restaurant or two, and you have a bunch of parks and stuff like that. So really, it's just a nice slice of life, very small, intimate film that follows this kind of whimsical character in Frances Hollinger, I believe is her full name, but you get to see why it's called Frances Ha. But played by Greta Gerwig, the character of Frances is, I don't know, it's kind of representative of, I think, a lot of people in the sort of the younger generations, in the modern world, where after college she feels very lost. She's kind of swimming in this world of, again, these young adults that some of them have jobs, some of them have more steady lives that are happening, and she kind of feels lost in that. She doesn't really know what she wants at all. She doesn't know where she's going, and it really is kind of this. It's a super inward journey where she's I haven't seen this in about a year or two, but it still very fresh in my mind, and it's still very it still resonates with me, because again, I'm a fan of Noah Baumbach's, and I don't know, I just really identified, like I said, with her really, this character really feeling lost, and this character trying to basically search for, I don't know, some kind of answer, some kind of thing that she can attach herself to move forward, some kind of thing that's like a springboard, or something that reassures her that stuff about, that life is that life is worth it, that life is heading in the upward direction, that things are going to be okay. I don't know. I think that's something that a lot of people can identify with, especially in sort of the millennial and Gen Z age range, especially in sort of, again, when you have to reconcile with things happening in the modern world and a lot of modernity, you know, not to be too philosophical for a second, but a lot of modernity, you know, you have to deal with purposelessness and meaninglessness when those types of things have been kind of taken away or diminished in terms of the human experience and human society. I think many people that feel any sort of spark inside them, you know, feel kind of lost and aimless. And I think that even though this movie is lighthearted and, you know, it kind of follows, you know, just this, again, very quirky, like whimsical girl and her relationship with her best friend and all this type of stuff, I do think at its heart, this movie has that same message of trying to find meaning and like joy in just life, and in, at least for the character of Frances Ha, in a basically an ordinary life, things like that. I think that that's deeply resonant, and I don't know, I really just enjoyed this movie. It gave me a lot of happiness when watching it. It's really fantastic, and like I said, it is an inspiration for me in terms of like its simplicity with the cinematography. The really nice, really crisp digital black and white photography is just incredible. And, you know, I don't know, there's something about this movie that makes me want to go out and make something simple, make something down to earth, make something real. I think that overall, that's what this movie is. So I highly recommend it. I believe it's still on Netflix. So if you really want to watch this and, you know, you're not as committed to like purchasing stuff like this as I am, I really recommend checking out Marriage Story and this on Netflix from Noah Baumbach, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. But in any case, we're gonna keep going. We got a lot of stuff today, a lot of all great movies. So I'll try to be briefer here, but give you the meat of my thoughts. So next up, this one is a doozy. I really love it, but this is Michael Haneke's 1997 film Funny Games. And this movie is a masterpiece, but in a very different type of way. This movie is, to me, it feels like a novel of like a very postmodern, like horror novel, basically is what it is. And without spoiling too many things, Funny Games, you know, in short, is about a family in Germany. This is in like the German countryside. They go to their nice like little lake house. They're doing a nice little weekend excursion type of vacation, and basically they are tormented by two very evil guys that it's kind of slowly revealed what their motivations are, but basically these two guys put this family through a night of horrific psychological and sometimes physical torture that, I don't know, this movie is deeply visceral. It's got a playfulness to it, but it's got this surreal nature where, you know, there are things that Haneke is doing here that are basically like playing with the reality of what a film can do and like what a film kind of can say. And not that it's something that hasn't been done before, but in the way that it's done, in the genre that it's done, in just exactly what he's forcing you as the audience to watch, I think is fascinating. I watched this literally a day or two ago with my buddy Liam, where we were working on editing a short film that we made together, and afterwards I was like, dude, we gotta watch something, and then it was like, all right, Funny Games. I gave him a couple choices, and I was like, what do you think of these movies? And he's like, Funny Games, and I was like, yes, I'm gonna talk about it soon, so let's watch it. And again, I was blown away. That was only the second time I'd seen it, but this movie again is just, it's so disturbing, it's so bleak, it's so sad, but again it has this wry kind of wit to it when you realize what Haneke is doing and what he's trying to say about, I think overall his statement is about kind of, I think the idea of violence in not only literature and movies, but just in art in general, and like what are we as the viewers like doing, and how are we participating in the violence that's happening in a piece of art? If you want to think about it in terms of that question, I think Funny Games is a fascinating movie. It's a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece of horror, and I think it is just so highly underrated. And again, I mean, in that case though, it's not very well known about. I would say for American audiences, what people would know is the fact that Michael Haneke in 2007, I believe, remade this movie, basically shot for shot, but starring all American actors like in America. And I believe it stars Tim Roth and Naomi Watts, so I shouldn't say those are American actors because they are not, but they're English-speaking actors. So he remade the movie for American audiences. I haven't seen that movie. Even though it's made by him, I don't really want to watch it because I feel like I'm kind of doing his real masterpiece a disservice. But in any case, watch that movie too. But this is the real version. This is the version that everyone should see. This version is horrifying, and it's incredible. So again, Funny Games from 1997. Highly recommend, especially people that like horror. You will, I hope, love this. I loved it. I really did. But in any case, that is the F section with Francis Ha and Funny Games. So let's move on to the G's without further ado. So to start, we have from 1967, a classic I think that most people would know is The Graduate by Mike Nichols, starring Dustin Hoffman, of course, and Anne Bancroft. This movie is absolutely incredible, and like I would say Francis Ha, if I can make a connection, it deals with, again, that idea of a young person that's just out of college, on the cusp of their adult life, having to deal with basically meaninglessness, purposelessness, trying to search for any kind of thing or passion to ground themselves to in life, to find the meaning. And for Dustin Hoffman's character, he doesn't really see that. And of course, you have the seduction with Anne Bancroft's character, Mrs. Robinson, and of course you have how the relationship comes in later with Dustin Hoffman and her daughter, who is actually his age, and you have a bizarre love triangle, if you want to call it that, happening. And I don't know, I think this movie has, especially for young guys, I think this movie has a lot of existential questions that can be posed. And I don't know, at least for me, again, I don't want to talk about this movie for so long. I feel like it's really summed up with an existential kind of dark comedy / drama about a young guy trying to search for meaning in his life on the cusp of adulthood. We've known that since 1967 when it came out, that's what this movie is, and it's brilliant. But I just want to share, I guess, a bigger thing, or a smaller moment, but a bigger thing for me with this movie is, I remember, I believe it was last summer, all of my friends, we were hanging out at my neighbor's house. It was down the street. He lives in my neighborhood, like I said. We had everybody meet there, and we were trying to decide to watch a movie, and I was like, guys, of course I have a bunch of movies, I have a big collection. Let me bring a couple options that I think you guys would like, and we can talk about it. So one of them was The Graduate, and as guys were reading the back of the discs, this one included, they were just like, whoa, like this one sounds great. I think we should watch this. It sounds funny. We had a couple guys like, it's kind of old. I don't really know. And I was like, trust me. The old part doesn't matter. And we put it on, and I swear, 10 guys who, again, not all of them really into movies at all, loved this movie, loved The Graduate, despite it, again, being an old movie. And I know for a lot of people that's a roadblock. So I was just happy that a lot of guys my generation were like, let's watch this movie. And they all liked it. People were laughing, people enjoyed it. And afterwards, we were talking, and guys felt that it resonated with them. So I think for me, that's kind of the biggest takeaway, and that's why I love this movie, is that I had a good memory like that with the guys that were literally all the same age as Dustin Hoffman's character in the film. It was fantastic. I think, again, for guys, this is a fun movie to watch in a group. I would say you gotta be in college to feel and resonate more so with Benjamin's character, played by Dustin Hoffman. But in any case, The Graduate is a masterpiece. Everyone go check this out. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. I'm very happy they made a Criterion because it deserves it. It's incredible. So, let's move on. And here we have, I believe, if I can check the date here, or actually I don't think it'll even say. So forget that. But in any case, I believe this is 2014's Wes Anderson release. Perhaps my favorite of all of his films, The Grand Budapest Hotel. When this was announced, when this was announced on Criterion, I was so happy because I have several other of Wes Anderson's films, some of which I think have already been reviewed here, especially like the Darjeeling Limited. I think that's the first one. But with Criterion, all of his films are beautifully illustrated by Wes's actual his own brother. I believe his name's Eric, but he's the illustrator on this. And of course, blue and pink is a very popular visual aesthetic within this movie, and you just have this gorgeous slipcase that's illustrated both blue on the outside and then pink on the inside of the interior of the Grand Budapest. And you have these. Well, one, it comes with a poster that at some point I'd like to get framed, but it is reversible. I don't know which side to use. But it comes with this super nice book of like supplements, like, where of course, if you've had a Criterion thing, and they go all out for the design, these are all little Easter eggs and references, to things in the movie. Like, for example, Sam, if you wanna zoom in, we have the prized Van Hoytel's Boy with Apple painting that is talked about within the movie, and is the no pun intended apple of many characters' eyes in this film. If you've indeed, they even have a fake art exhibit thing for Boy with Apple. It's just so funny. But in any case, this movie is simply incredible. It has, I don't know, I think more than anything, this movie feels like Wes Anderson's like love letter to just like human existence, because you have these multiple timelines going on. You have the girl starting in the beginning, the girl in the graveyard, and she walks up to the writer of the book, The Grand Budapest Hotel. So in the modern day, she's like honoring this old writer that she looks up to. And then we cut back to the writer before he's died and he's old and he's setting up the movie. And then we cut into the flashbacks. This is the third level. We're in the flashback with the writer himself, played by Jude Law, as he interviews an old man who is the owner of the hotel named Zero. And then we cut to their conversation about Zero talking about his experience and how he came to owning the Grand Budapest Hotel in the events of a fictionalized World War II. Again, I would say that I think many of Wes Anderson's movies kind of exist within his own head, but this movie certainly exists within this universe inside Wes Anderson's head, where it's dark at times. Like, you have very adult themes going on and you have some cursing and stuff happening, but this movie has such a heart and such a soul that, at least for me, this might not be for everyone else, but at least for me, I tear up so much every time I watch this movie, because again, I just feel this beauty coming from it, this warmth, this light. It feels to me, this movie feels to me like a warm fire, if that makes sense to people. Like, I watched this movie over winter break with my family. Everybody loved it. I think this is just like, I truly think this is Wes Anderson's best movie. And maybe you could say Grand Budapest is kind of like the normie choice for Wes Anderson movies. I also personally love the Royal Tenenbaums, but I think that, again, Grand Budapest is my favorite. From the Wes Anderson style of those hyper-symmetrical shots, basically perfected. The performances are top-notch. Like, Ralph Fiennes goes all out as I feel terrible for getting the character's full name, but he goes all out as the main butler of the Grand Budapest Hotel. Again, Jude Law is fantastic as and I think really represents perhaps Wes Anderson's own kind of self-insert type of character, if it can be called that. I think that's more of a speculation thing, and I think from a writer's standpoint, looking back at it, I think I could be wrong, but I think if there's a likely option for Wes Anderson, what is closest to Wes's point of view, I think it's the Jude Law character. I don't know, from start to finish, this movie's perfect. I don't know what else I could say. If you want to watch something that is so earnest, so filled with heart and soul, and I think even as much as I myself fall victim to cynicism and expressing a lot of cynicism, if you want to watch a movie that has not an ounce of cynicism, but just a love of, I don't know, the human experience, human relationships, whatever you want to call it, please watch the Grand Budapest Hotel if you haven't already. I cannot recommend it higher. And if you really love it, you should definitely get the Criterion because it is a beautiful edition. Beautiful edition. So watch that as well. This next film was recommended to me by a guy that's not a film guy. And so for me, that made me all the more intrigued because this guy is a good friend of mine. His name is Joe. Shout out to you, Joe. If you ever see this, I'll send this to you, so you will see it. But Joe is a man that shares many tastes with myself, especially in the realm of art. And so when I get a recommendation from, again, a guy that's not a film guy, that says, hey man, I watched this movie called The Great Beauty. This is freshman year of college at TCU. He goes, I watched this movie called The Great Beauty. You need to watch it. You need to watch this. And I was interested. And then I found out that it was made by Paolo Sorrentino, who is the director and writer of HBO's The Young Pope, which I mean, for me, it's in my top favorite shows of all time. And I don't like TV shows, so that's saying something. And then I was like, okay, this is intriguing. And then it's 2013, which is before The Young Pope. So now I'm really interested. And so this is from 2013, an Italian movie. It's almost 3 hours long, but this is The Great Beauty by Paolo Sorrentino. And let me tell you, this is one of the most beautiful films that I've ever seen in my entire life. And this movie, Paolo Sorrentino, is one of the most criminally underrated filmmakers in all of cinema. He has to be, especially modern filmmakers working today. Paolo Sorrentino, if you haven't seen The Young Pope and The New Pope, its sequel, you highly need to watch that. This is, I would say, this is his only like feature film that I've seen. The other one that I really want to see is something called Loro, which I believe Tony Servillo, the main character, is still the main character in that as well. But if you have not seen all 20 hours of The Young Pope and The New Pope, you need to, because despite, again, not having seen all of Paolo Sorrentino's theatrical releases, I have seen The Young Pope and The New Pope, and that is, again, 20 hours of material, so that's 10 movies equivalent's worth. So I feel like I know what this guy feels, what this guy sees out of life, what this guy feels spiritually about the world, metaphysically, if you will. And I absolutely love his work. And The Great Beauty is a masterpiece. The Great Beauty itself, the meaning of the film and its title, basically you follow this writer. His name is Jeppe Gambardella, and he's an Italian writer. And he's credited in this film it's a fictional book, but he's credited with like basically writing one of the best books of the 20th century. And it's called The Human Apparatus, I believe, which is a cool title. But basically, after writing this novel, one of the most famous novels of the 20th century, he kind of doesn't really do anything with the rest of his career. He basically becomes a writer of articles, like a columnist at a really prestigious like magazine type of thing in Italy, but that's really all he does. And so this film kind of picks up with him on his 60th birthday, and we basically see that this is a man who, through fame and the fortune of writing, again, one of the best works of literature in the 20th century, he basically falls into this life of excess, this life of kind of degenerate hedonism, things of that nature. And now, waking up on his 60th birthday, his life basically feels completely empty, and he feels like he's done nothing with, the life that he's been given. And so we basically follow this guy on a very literary journey through the streets and countryside of Italy and the streets of Rome as he tries to find what he calls the great beauty in life. And it basically, we go through his memories, we go through the different broken relationships that he kind of ebbs and flows out of in this, again, in the modern timeline when this is set, and he's an older man. And I don't know, I don't want to talk too much about it because I feel like even if I just start telling you things that happen, you're not really this is a movie that has to be like felt. And I don't know, I think for a lot of American audiences it's going to seem weird because you have this, not avant-garde filmmaker, but this Italian, European filmmaker that has a style that's so completely his own, and you're seeing it again through this European kind of cultural lens, so things might seem a little weird, but I think anyone who loves a story about a great person, a great man that, is just trying to find something more to life, where, you have this kind of grand figure, but their inner story is really small and intimate, and it's something special. And that's what I think this movie is. And if I could compare it to something that a lot of people have seen to get people to really watch it, this movie is kind of like if the Wolf of Wall Street, like Scorsese's Wolf of Wall Street, is like part one, and you get all the way up until he's like, the end of his kind of career, or the end of like his storyline in that film, and then you cut all the way back like 30 years later, and then you make another movie about him like reflecting on all of that. That's what this movie kind of is. We follow a man who has found himself at the end of his life, or not the end of his life, but he's in the twilight of his life, you could say. And he finds again that he has no meaning. And I think for a lot of us, that going back to the modern, the whole thing about the modern world, a lot of people who are struggling with this meaninglessness, I think that a film like The Great Beauty can show, or at least a film like The Great Beauty can ask the right questions where if you're watching something as deeply as I watch something, you allow, or as you view a piece of art, you allow it to, at least to me, to penetrate me to the very soul, to the very core, and allow myself really to ask myself questions, because whenever I'm viewing something, what's coming up is questions. I'm asking myself questions about, how is this making me feel? Why is this making me feel it such a way? And from these sort of perhaps abstract feelings even, I can sort of draw conclusions about my own life, my own psyche, my own self. And I think for a film like The Great Beauty really, really puts that into perspective for me, and I think it will for a lot of people that watch it. And it makes you ask yourself these questions about where basically we get this special opportunity, unlike the character in the film, before it's too late, to ask ourselves the questions about what does life mean to us? What does our human experience mean to us? How are we living it? And I think something like The Great Beauty asks those questions perfectly. It asks them perfectly, and it asks them deeply, and it asks them, I think, honestly. And so that's why I think, I can't recommend The Great Beauty enough, but I also can't recommend The Young Pope enough. That show and series is also incredible for very different reasons, where this film, you could say, is more secular but still metaphysical and all that kind of stuff, but The Young Pope goes directly in terms of the theological, and asks very daring questions, very interesting questions, but I don't want to talk about The Young Pope at the moment. But in any case, I think to me it just proves that Sorrentino is such an incredible and such an underrated filmmaker, that it's criminal. It is criminal that this guy is not as known as he is. He is a master of the craft. He's incredible. Please give this film a watch. I highly recommend The Great Beauty. It's worth your time, I promise you. So, in summary, we have Frances Ha, Funny Games, The Graduate, The Grand Budapest Hotel, and of course, The Great Beauty. These are my picks alphabetically in my own personal Criterion collection, the F and G section. So join me next week for the H, I, J, going on down the line. I don't know what specific titles I have under each letter, but when I get to next week and you watch the video, you will see. But join me next time as I continue to go down the line and recommend to you films from the Criterion collection. Be sure to subscribe to the MCubed network, and follow us on different social media if you like following our content. If you like my show, if you like any of the others, we really appreciate it. We're just guys that like talking about our interests, and I think we know our stuff. So I think it's pretty fun. I think it's pretty good content for the viewers here. But in any case, also stay on the lookout for myself and Mr. Aaron Schmerald, or Schmook's channel. He does the sci-fi fantasy show, which is another huge interest of mine. So we're working on getting a live stream thing together. So we hope to be doing that regularly pretty soon, so stay on the lookout for those. Those will be much more long-form videos that I think you guys will also enjoy, kind of all of our musings about all this type of stuff. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed today. I really hope even more so that you go watch at least one of these movies before the next episode. Let me know in the comments or my own social media, any social media, if people really are liking these films, because I think that would give me kind of the most joy, is if you guys are watching them and liking them, and they're affecting you in some sort of way, because they have for me. And I wouldn't want anything more for anybody else. I just want movies to get into people's hearts, get into people's souls. That's all I'm really about. So in any case, hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, join me next week, and thanks so much for watching. See you later.